guys, this is Isabella Illustrations here, and welcome to a new video. So today's video is going to be a movie review, which I haven't done in a long time, and it's going to be a movie review about Inside Out 2. So without further ado, let's get to it. Okay, so the first thing I'd like to address, is it better or not as good as the first one? And I think that, in my opinion, this sequel was definitely better than the first one. And I think that was because I couldn't really relate to Riley in the first movie. I had never gone through moving away from old friends and other things, so I couldn't really relate to what she was going through at the time. But with this sequel, I felt like I could relate to Riley more because her teen years, well, her starting teen years that we saw in the movie, it definitely spoke to me and my experiences as a teen, and I think it'll speak to a lot of people, especially young people. And I think that this is a movie that all future young adults should be shown, either at school or by parents, because if I had this film when I turned 13, I think it would have been so helpful to help me realize what it was I was feeling at the time and how to voice it. Because at the time, I had no idea what the heck anxiety even was. Like, I didn't even know that was an emotion. So I think that this is an important movie that young people should definitely be shown. And I think that's just something I felt that was missing in the first one, I think. And I think this movie was definitely really, really special. Something I did not like in the first movie was that not all the emotions got their time to shine, really. It felt more like joy and sadness's movie. And in this one, all 5 of them, I believe, get to go on an adventure together. And I love that. But even the new emotions, they also got their time to shine. And I didn't feel like anyone was particularly left out that much. I mean, maybe boredom, but boredom is a very tricky emotion to play with, I guess. But yeah, her name is technically Ennui, which is the French word for boredom, so that was kind of cool, since, you know, I live in Quebec, lots of French. But yeah, anxiety definitely took center stage in this movie, but every other character got a pretty good amount of screen time, and I was very happy with that. Speaking of anxiety, I think anxiety was great and very well portrayed. It's very hard to portray anxiety, and I think they did it perfectly. I wouldn't have changed anything that they did. I think it was phenomenal. I totally agreed with everything that they did. They explained also the difference from anxiety and fear. So I think that definitely needed to be clarified because a lot of people think they're the same thing, but they are not. Anxiety is it's basically non-physical fears, like fears of the future and situations that might or might not happen. You're just dreaming up scenarios of worst case of what could happen. And they also show how anxiety, like, the reason it's there is to try and help us, like, pass a test by making us worried about failing. You know, we study because we're anxious about failing a test. But there's a difference between a healthy amount of anxiety and a non-healthy amount. And then they showed us that fear is basically just of, like, regular things, like physical dangers and things like that. Like, if you see a lion, that's a physical danger to you. It can eat you. So, yeah, I really liked how it was portrayed. I also kind of loved that anxiety was the main character, not just because I personally have a really strong connection to anxiety because I've been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, but it's also good to help young people with like who just have the normal amounts of anxiety, who don't have anxiety disorders. I think it's just a good something we all experience, and I think it's something that can be quite overwhelming, and I think whether you're diagnosed or not, it's like something that can be tricky to handle. And I think it was definitely an emotion they needed to put front and center, because so many people struggle through this. And yeah, I think it's important to show anxiety, especially in the teen years, because that's when anxiety, I felt like, really started to show for me, and I think other teens as well. Like, there's so much like change, and change is always terrifying, and making new friends and all of these concerns about like, who do I click with? If I don't click with anybody, I'm going to be lonely, and all these worries about like things like that. High school is just an awful experience in general, but yeah, it can be a scary time, and I like that anxiety was definitely center stage. I think she was the perfect character. Something I really found funny in this movie were the puns. So they made some pretty great puns. So they took some sayings like don't bottle up your emotions, and they made them literal. And they actually bottled up emotions. And they did a couple of these kind of things. And I thought they were so funny and so enjoyable. And I just felt like they added some really like originality like to the film. I really had fun with them. And I think other people will too. So that was just something fun that I felt like the movie makers did that was really cool. Next, I felt like Riley's teen like year kind of start was really relatable, from the struggles that she's struggling with, like trying to fit in with these high school girls she'll be going to school with next year, and like trying to, you know, fit in with them because she's afraid of having no friends when she starts high school. And I think that that's a scary time, because you get separated from your old friends in elementary school. Sometimes you end up in different high schools and you have to make new friends, and you're like so worried about finding friends. You're like, I don't want to be alone, because loneliness is the saddest feeling in high school. I experienced that, and it's really just an awful time. So yeah, I can understand Riley's worries about that. And she does make a ton of mistakes, but the teen years are the time where you gotta make those mistakes and learn from them. And that way you become a better person. And I think that was definitely important to show in the film. Then the messages of the film I felt were really, really complex, but not too complex. Like, I think Soul had a more complex message, but I don't know if young children are gonna get it. But there were good messages, like not changing yourself to fit in, which is something everybody does at some point when they're 13. I mean, I know that I definitely probably did it a little bit, but I can't really remember that much about that. But yeah, it's like good messages of like how to manage anxiety, and like they showed like by realizing what you can and can't control, and looking at it in that way, and weighing out what can you control, and just worrying like about that. Like, you can control how good you're gonna do on a test by studying, which is very smart. I loved how they gave you like kind of like a way to manage anxiety, and without trying to eradicate it, because lots of people think that's the goal, but that's not the goal. It's about living with it and managing it. It's not about getting rid of it completely, because it's there for a reason. And it's like, it's a bit hard to accept that sometimes, I can agree. But I think that that's why it was so important for them to mention this, and I really am grateful that they did, because it's so important. And yeah, I really think that some of the messages in here were just phenomenal. The last thing I think I want to mention is that it was also shown like how the teen years are basically the years like that you're kind of developing who you are going to be kind of for the rest of your life. And they're the very important developmental kind of, it's a very important developmental stage. And it's the years where you don't just discover who you are, but it's like who you want to be. If you want to be a good person or basically a bad person, I don't know. I guess it's kind of like that. It's one or the other. But it also like mentions that it's not just the good memories that shape who you are, but it's also the bad memories and everything you've gone through your whole life up till that point or even beyond. It all makes you who you are. And I think that that's an important message, because it's like there's still a problem where it's like in the beginning of the movie they say, let's keep all the good memories and get rid of the bad ones. But the bad ones also have merit. They also add to what makes a person a person. And I think that that was definitely important to show. And again, I just love what they did with this. So, for a rating, I think I would give this movie like 4 out of 5. Like, a movie has to, like, I don't know, really be perfect to give a 5, but I think it was very close to perfect. Lots of people said it was the best animated movie of the year. I don't know about that, but it's definitely one of the best. And I had so much fun with it, and it really resonated with me. And I think that that's why it's doing so well at the box office. And it's because everyone just is relating to this movie. And I think that it's good for not just young people, but adults as well. I'm 22 and went to see it, and a lot of people in the theater were around my age or a little bit younger, but not by much. And yeah, I think it's just a movie that's really important to see if you struggle with anxiety, or even if you're just going through a rough time of starting high school. I highly recommend this movie. I think it's very helpful to people, and I think this was the movie I wanted when the first one came out, and I'm so glad that they did this, and I'm really, really happy with it. So, yeah, that's my review of Inside Out 2. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please give this a thumbs up, and thank you guys for watching, and I'll hopefully see you guys in my next one. Bye-bye!